It's ding ding, two men in a ring. We put pride in your stride and a quiver in your liver. You want 'em, we've got 'em, coming to you. Loud and proud, he's the biggest, he's the baddest. It's Mr. Gavin Davis on the Gavin Davis Podcast Show.
And good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Gavin Davis Podcast. Today's guests doesn't get any bigger than this. He is an 8th degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. She is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. They are the first couple of UK Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I want to welcome to the podcast Mr. and Mrs. Mauricio Gomes. Mauricio, Natalie, thank you for coming on.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the first couple. Oh, nice.
Are you sure?
No, what he's saying is that you are the president, which makes me the first lady. Remember in the gym they used to call me the first lady.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it when Roger calls him mommy.
Okay, so Nat, I want to thank you for organizing this as well, because I know how busy you both are.
My pleasure.
So what I want to do, I want to start with Mauricio, and I want to go back in time, because there's certain people on the planet that go, oh, if I could go back, I'd like to see how the pyramids were built. And there's people that'll say, if I could go back, I'd like to see how Stonehenge was built. If I could go back, I'd love to be able to know what was going on in the gym that Mauricio was in with Hollis Gracie back in the day. So I want to pick his brains on that era of jiu-jitsu. Okay. But first of all, I want to go back to the start, Mauricio. Tell us about how you got into jiu-jitsu and your first coach.
Well, I first got into jiu-jitsu because of my father. My father used to train at the first ever Gracie Academy in Rio, the big one, on the Rio Branco 151. That was it was the second academy that the Gracie brothers put up, but that was the main one. It stayed till the end, till Aliu moved finally out of there into a place that they were till recently. And all my father talked about was jiu-jitsu and Aliu's fights and Carson fights. And I just fell in love with it since day one. So he took me to the academy. I used to train with him. But then we moved to America, where the only person that I actually could train a little bit once in a while was my father. When I came back, then I started training with I was a kid. I was like 12 years old. So just recently come back from the States to Brazil. I didn't go get buses and stuff like that, but there was an academy on the corner of my house that I started training there. And I trained there till I was in my early teens, like 15, 16. Then I went to my father's instructor, which is Master João Alberto Barreto. He's still alive.
Yeah.
And I see him every time I go to Rio. And I stayed with him till he closed his academy in 1977. And then I went to Halls. The thing is that he never graded me.
Okay.
I didn't stay there long enough to be graded. So Halls actually gave me my first belt, the blue, all the way to black.
Yeah. So João Alberto Barreto was in the 50s. He was undefeated, legitimately undefeated.
He was the best person out of the Gracie Academy.
Yeah.
He was the best one.
Yeah. Now I found
even Carson had a hard time with him.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
They were training partners there, and João started doing fights first on TV and Raj do Ring. It was a program that they had, and he won everything. He was the most technical fighter that Aliu produced at that time. there were four main guys at the time: Carson, Hélio Vigio, Armando, and João Alberto Barreto. I remember João had a picture of them in his office, in his gym, and it says "to the big four." And there was a picture of the four of them, and I remember looking at that picture so vividly. Yeah.
Well, I found something quite interesting regarding him and his best mate, Elio Vigo. I
Hélio
never
Vigio.
knew. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best to get the pronunciations right because I'm Welsh.
Oh, it's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I learned by doing some research for this podcast that they were actually the first referees in UFC 1 and 2
Yeah.
before Big John McCartney
Yes.
started.
Yes, because when Rodion elaborated the UFC, because it was Rodion. People might not like the guy. They have controversies about him, whatever he did in the beginning, whatever. It doesn't really matter. That was a long time ago. But the person that created the UFC, obviously based on what his dad did before, was Rodion. And he needed the support of the family and friends to make that happen. He had the sponsors and all that, but he needed material, human material, to do what we needed to do at that time. So he flew everybody from Brazil, refs, everything. And Hélio Vigio, João Alberto Barreto, João's brother, uh, uh, Álvaro Barreto, they were involved in the refereeing of these events. I remember that the first Vale Tudo that we had in Rio, it was right after Hall's death, probably in '84, something like that. One of the referees back then was Elvio João and Álvaro Barreto. I remember that one of the last fights, they threw the towel in, and Elvio just wiped his face and threw the towel back.
Okay. Did did you ever see Carlson in his prime when he was fighting?
No, no.
It was
I
before your time,
saw
yeah?
he was before. My father did. I met Castle. He already had his gym with halls in Figueiredo Magalhães.
Yeah.
That's when
So
I met him.
so I've been reading this book, Elio, and I want to just give you a quick show. You're mentioned numerous times in this book by numerous people. It's Robert Drysdale's new book.
Oh yeah.
It's about the evolution of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it goes in great detail about the gym that Carlson and Hollis shared. I'm going to try and
Yes.
pronounce it for you. Is it Figueiredo de Magalhães?
Magalhães.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a difficult name.
Yeah.
It's a Portuguese name. Yeah.
So that book is an excellent book. It's really, really good. I suggest anyone listening to try and pick up that book and give it a good read. So what I want to do,
I haven't read it. I learned about it, but I haven't read it. I read Roger's mom's book,
yeah,
Carlos, the dynasty thing.
yeah,
It's difficult to get these days.
yeah. So you started with roles in roughly 1977, yeah?
Yeah.
So before that, as you were growing up, because it mentions in the book there was stages for jiu-jitsu in Brazil where it had its peak when Elio fought Kimura in 51, and then it like died down, and then jiu-jitsu was just like, it was a very delicate thing at the time. There was only a certain group of people that knew the ins and outs of jiu-jitsu because the world didn't know about it back then. The point I'm making is what was it like being around Elio and Carlos and people like that back in the day, were they like national icons in Brazil? Or was it just like a certain few people knew about who they were and their abilities?
Well, being a Gracie in those years was roughly comparing, was like being in the royal family here.
Right. Okay.
You couldn't walk a block without having to stop and talk to people and whatever have you. They were in the newspapers every day, front page, magazines, uh, radio interviews, television when it started, and they were extremely famous and still are to this day. The Gracie family wears a very uh, strong name, always did. And at that time, uh, I think Vale Tudo, what Vale Tudo, it proved its point in the beginning. They were challenging other martial arts to try to prove a point, and they did prove that point. So after Carlo Casson's fights, they they started having they had programs on TV. They were like amateur professional amateur MMA fights
Yeah.
on TV. Heróis do Ringue was the name of the program. And some of the fights were awful because the guys, they weren't really fighters. They were some brawlers that were there. So there was blood everywhere, and that was like prime time TV in your house where you just come back from work.
Yeah.
so, so I think the MMA scene at that point down, and I think there was even a prohibition to put them on TV, something like that. I can't tell you. I would have to research it to tell
Yeah.
you with a little bit more details about exactly what happened. But I think down. But the academies were full. The academies, especially the Gracie Academy, there was always people there. They had a very before uh, Rawls and Carson. Carson left the main academy first. He had a small gym, and then he moved to this gym where he was sharing with Halls.
Yeah.
And that gym was special. We stayed there many years, even after Halls died. Carson, actually, they're still there to this day.
Right.
the
Okay.
The gym is still running. Yeah,
Okay.
the gym is still running.
Because
It was we used to use the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the big mat upstairs, and we used the small mats downstairs Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday mornings.
yeah, because the book states that even though Carlson and Elio didn't really see eye to eye, Elio still respected Carlson and he respected Hollis massively and used to bring the likes of Hickson and Hoyler over there regularly to train.
Not Hoyler. Don't remember Hoyler being there at all.
Okay.
But I do remember uh, him bringing. Hoyler was just a kid.
Yeah.
He was probably 10 years old. Uh, I remember him taking Hickson sometimes to train with one specific person. Not that he came, brought Hickson, and Hickson trained with the guys there, and it wasn't like that at all. He came, he brought Hickson, and he would choose one or two or persons, and they would set aside and train with Hickson. Uh, that was their thing. It was, and we would continue with the class with
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was saying that the reason that you guys got so good was not only because of the coaching you had of Hollis and Carlson, it was because you were doing group sessions. Whereas previously, Elio and Carlos used to do private sessions. However, reading the book, I find that hard to believe because Elio and Carlos were still at an excellent standard by anyone's imagination. It was just that the next evolution of jiu-jitsu came around. Did you know when you were younger, did you do more private sessions and then might when you went into Hollis's gym, do the group sessions more in depth?
No,
You always did
no.
group sessions, yeah?
I always do group sessions. What 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 they are talking about is way before. In the
Oh,
beginning of the gym,
yeah,
they had very limited group sessions, and even though that was not something that that was usual. Why? Because the gym had a very peculiar structure, right? It was a big gym. It was in a building. It had, I think, 2 or 3 floors. So it was mostly for people that were working. So you didn't have to take anything to the gym, just yourself. So you would go there. You would have a suit or whatever clothes you had. You would go to the changing room. You would put your you would have your locker. You would put your things there. You were given a gi. You were given a towel. So you would train for half an hour, and after that training session, you could have a shower. You throw your gis, your dirty gi in a basket, your towel, and you would get your shower, put your clothes on, and go home.
okay,
Once a week, all of these gis, all of these towels were driven to Teresópolis, where the Gracies had a massive house and they had a massive laundry, and all of these gis that were used during the week, they were washed, cleaned, brought back on Monday and they had zillions of gis. And even the instructors, you would use a gi for each private lesson. The private lessons at the time, they were only half an hour each. So every you arrived at the gym, you already knew which mat you were going with who, with what instructor, and you would wait there, enter the mat, do your session, and then go home. That's how it worked. Later on, the group sessions started because, let's put it this way, to run a gym like that, these guys were paying a lot more money than you would pay for a group session, right?
yeah,
You were paying for private sessions, and then later on said, well, we got to put more people in. We need there's the waiting list was started to get huge, enormous. People waiting to for one somebody to give up and, we got a spot here, you gotta let's put that guy in, whatever. And then slowly the group sessions started to pick up, and I think that's when Carson left. And the reason why they had this fallout between Carson, Elio, whatever, in the beginning, even though it was 3 separate gyms, it was Elio's gym, it was Carson's gym, and Hall's. We entered in the competitions as Gracie Academy. We entered as one.
yeah,
So uh, the groups started to get too big, especially Carson. Why? Because Carson reduced his price and a lot to get more and more and more people in.
right.
He everybody, Carson was a very open guy. Everybody knew Carson. He was friends with everybody. Everybody wanted to train with him. Yeah, come on in, come on in, come on in. Some paid, some didn't. It doesn't matter. He had a very strong team of guys that they were fighters, man. They were they were something else. And so did we. Hall's team started to get really, really strong. So to enter the competition, we had to fight Carson's fighters, and they had to fight our fighters. So to pick 2, sometimes 4 guys to enter the competition in that weight division, and that was a pain in the ass. Oh, sorry about that. Because it was, you were fighting people that you knew, and
Yeah.
in the end of the day, they were good. We were good. Everybody deserved the chance to fight the championships. So Carson's team started to get too big. He said, "Listen, I'm going to enter with my own team, Carson Gracie team," and that was it. He entered first. We still hung on maybe another year to the Gracie Academy. So we entered with Hickson's guys and Edu's guys, but they were just like half a dozen. So there weren't that many. So later on, they separate as well, and then it became 3 teams because they had to leave the city center. So the Gracie Academy that was before was no longer as existent. It was Carson Gracie Academy, Hall's Gracie Academy, and then Gracie Umaita, which is the name that they use till this day, even though they're not in Umaita anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So you used to go up the stairs into the dojo, and then you'd have one room on, let's say for example, the left-hand side, and Carlson's gym would be on the right-hand side of his group, yeah? Or would they be on the floor
No,
above you?
no, it was, you had the entrance downstairs that had really nothing. It was just the stairs going up. On the first floor, you had 2 small mats. You had a reception and 2 small mats. And then you had another set of stairs, and that would be the showers and the bigger mat. So we would use that big mat on our days, and they would use the 2 small ones, and we would swap.
Okay.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday we use, Tuesday and Wednesday,
Yeah.
and Thursday it was their turn.
Because the book
And
talks about their relationship being very good. Carlson and Hollis Gracie's relationship being very good. They respected each other immensely.
always they fought a lot, but it was always about a silly thing. Brothers discussion about a silly thing that happened in the gym or whatever it is, but it wasn't actual fights. It was more like discussions.
Yeah.
About something silly, but nothing major. They were good friends, and we loved Carson to bits.
Yeah.
They loved Halls to bits. It wasn't like we were 2 rival teams in the same building and couldn't even see each other, that the fight would go on. No, it wasn't like that at all. We were all friends. We all got well together.
Yeah.
Even though it was 2 separate teams, but it was 2 strong teams of 2 guys that everybody respected so much that there was no misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Among us. It really didn't. I don't remember any at all.
Yeah. I want to talk about Bob Anderson, the wrestler. So the book goes on about how Hollis and Bob had a great relationship. Bob used to come over and teach wrestling and different stuff to Hollis to help you cross train. Do you remember him? Were you there during these times?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. And what were your
Yes,
memories of that?
Yeah, I do. I trained with that man. Oh God. And always maybe trained with him in wrestling, not jiu-jitsu.
No, it was wrestling. Yeah.
Oh man, he was a monster. He was huge.
Yeah.
He played with me like I was a toddler. Because we couldn't do jiu-jitsu. My first wrestling match, I didn't know what to do. I pulled guard.
Yeah.
The guy said, "You're disqualified." I said, "What are you talking about? I'm just getting warmed up."
Yeah.
I said, "Nope, You can't put your back on the floor. And then Halls got really upset.
Yeah.
You don't know the rules. You got to read the rules. Okay. Sorry.
So
Sorry. Won't do it again.
so for the
And I
viewers
remember
listening,
Bob Anderson. I
yeah,
remember the day that Halls put a gi on the guy. That was funny, man.
yeah,
Because he was huge and Halls wasn't. He was kind of, I don't know, 5'8", something like that. But he was very good looking and very athletic. And he put the gi on. And the simple things that he was doing, I think the guy tapped about 20 times. And he was like, and he got upset because he was tapping in something that he didn't know what was going on. Right? He was
yeah,
a wrestler.
yeah. So
Yeah.
apparently the Americana is named after him. Hollis named it after him because he brought that technique into the gym.
Was it? I don't
Mm.
remember.
But
It might
he
have been.
so when Hollis was learning wrestling off Bob Anderson, would he learn it in a private setting and then bring it into a seminar setting, or would it just be like an open mat seminar type of scenario straight away?
No, none of that.
No?
He would train with us in the gym.
So Bob Anderson just come in and just train.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
and teach us. He
Okay.
wasn't there to do seminars. There
Okay.
was no seminars back then, man.
Yeah.
We're talking 70s.
Yeah. No, I was
No,
what I meant was is that if Hollis would learn it in a private setting first, have a few,
no.
you know,
Halls would would learn in the gym with
yeah,
him. There's no privacy. It was if you arrived early, you would see them training.
yeah,
There was no locked doors or anything like that. He was there to teach him and us. The only thing that he did with Bob separately was Bob stayed at his house, so they brought their, oh, let's go home. We're gonna have a meal now.
yeah,
We'll come back later. So stuff like that.
yeah,
But training wise, no, there was Halls was not selfish. He would not, he would tell his own brothers and when we started, when his team started to get strong in the sense of we were getting better. We were starting to get black belts and brown belts, and we were good. And his brothers sometimes had a bit of difficulties. And boy, your team is getting good. Yeah, you want to get better, train, because I'm gonna keep on training them till they beat you. So
yeah,
to make them train harder, that was his approach to training. Was not like, oh, I'm going to teach a bit more to this guy and a bit less to this one. No, he never had that ever. Halls taught everything to anyone that wanted to learn, that was there with open. He was there with, man, unbelievable.
yeah, yeah. Right, we're gonna end part one there, Mauricio. I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring you back,
Okay.
bring you and Natalie back for part two.
Okay. Natalie.
Uh,